Hey y'all, welcome to our first webinar in the Student Empowerment Series, one of 4 for September. I am super excited to be joined by Jon Craig, who is going to lead a webinar on Genius Hour protocols. This is something that he's done for years. He's an expert. He's done things that have been amazing, and he's also willing to share some of his pitfalls. So I am going to allow him to take it away. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey everyone, thanks Neff. Happy to be part of this and be working with Screencastify. I'm going to try hard to look at the camera, not at my screen, but this is new for me. So thanks for jumping in. I'm going to share my screen here in a bit and kind of go through things. I don't anticipate taking an hour. I'm hoping to have some interaction. Hopefully I won't have too many hiccups with the machine and the new device. Hopefully my kids won't run in as I'm learning this program. But I hope it's something you get out of it. The idea here is I'm going to share as many resources as possible. Hey, Laura. Hey, Ed. What's up? Go Tigers. Yeah, that's representing here. And give you something to walk away with to build, because this is a massive idea, and there's so many things that fit under this umbrella. So there's no one way to do it. So let's dive in. And yeah, if you want to say hi, by all means, jump in the chat. I'll try to check questions as we go. But when I share screens, I don't think I'll be able to see it. So here we go. Also, you're going to see on this is that there is a link down here. So I'm going to kind of stay in this mode, because of course I'm not at the bottom there. I'm going to kind of stay in this mode instead of full present mode. So if there's something going on, I'll try to click back and forth to make sure that I am getting you everything you need. But again, my name's Jon Craig. I'm a newly named assistant principal. This is my 16th year in education. All at the same school district. At the high school level, I was a social studies teacher for 13 years, as instructional coach for 3 years, and just recently this August became an assistant principal at the high school level. And I'm excited to share this idea with you. I'm from Levittown, working in Levittown, PA, just outside of Philadelphia at Truman High School, go Tigers. But I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area, so I pretty much got all of Pennsylvania covered. So I'm ready to dig in. A little bit more about me. This is me. This is my why. I always try to share this with people so you know where I'm coming from, and you can't boo me as much because you're seeing that I'm a family man. But this is my wife, Kate, who's also an educator, my 2 boys, Kate and Silas, on our trip to England last year. And this surrounding myself with my PLN and the people that support me and people I can go to for help is huge. If you're not working to connect, I highly recommend it. I was a football coach for almost all of my career until recently, and that's been a big part of where I am today. My KTI group that in Pennsylvania here, if you're from PA, hope you know about that or are a part of that program. And just being around kids, right? Kids are our why. And that's me. So real quick, I'll jump back over to the chat. Just drop in there if you haven't done it already, what grade level, subject matter, where you're from in the country, or elsewhere. That'd be cool if it's elsewhere. And here, this down here at the bottom will always be on almost every slide. So you can take a copy of my presentation, take whatever you want. I try to give all the credit away that from places I got this from. I'm just kind of, giving you a portal to look at. So I'm going to jump over to the chat here, just to get an idea of where people are from. Pittsburgh. All right. What's up, Rochelle? A lot of good friends helped me. We good? Can I hear? Everybody hear me okay? Give me some thumbs up. And that's another thing too, like not being able to see your faces and getting the nods. So I'd love some emojis. So, send some things my way if you know that if everything's coming through. So we got some PA covered, which is good. Some of the people I'm working with. Awesome. New Zealand, amazing. Thank you for joining us, Ruth. It's K to 8, 5 to 12, 5th grade STEM. I love it. Elementary is going to be interesting to see how this works at your level, because it's always the challenge. But I have some ideas, I think, that I've seen from others and what might work to get this growing where you are. So hello over there. Awesome. Texas, Philadelphia area, Missouri, some of my 40 CFPLN people. Thanks for coming in. Awesome. All right. So if you have a question, try to throw it in there. Again, I might have to flip back and forth a little bit, but I'll try to go back and I'll definitely say ask questions now as we're going. So here we go. So one thing I want to put out there, what Genius Hour is not. It is not a one-size-fit-all. There's no Genius Hour police. They're going to tell you got to do this. I'll joke about what I say the Genius Hour truthers say about this idea, but you got to make it fit for you. You got to make it fit to your comfort level. I hope and think it'll make some of you uncomfortable when you try it, but that's kind of the point of this is It's really about letting go and letting kids drive their learning, but really connecting into their passions. It's not clean and easy. I made a ton of mistakes. You probably will too. So I'm hoping that, that you're ready to deal with those and kind of, find a way to shine those off and keep moving. It's not going to be perfect. I had some kids I'm going to show you that had some great projects, and I had some not so great, didn't even finish. So it's not foolproof. It's not perfect. There's no perfect method. There's so many variations of this, but the key is we're turning kids over to kids to let them steer their learning, but also connect their passion. I love the stories when kids find a new love for school through these projects. Is a pretty incredible and powerful thing. And the reason I got to this point, so I got to share some George Kouros. He was the guy, not directly, but indirectly, pushed me over the edge to try this project. I was sitting, I taught AP US history for a couple of years. I felt like, oh man, I'm a great lecturer. I'm good. I'm engaging kids, but I was getting bored personally. I knew if I was bored, the kids were bored. And so when the AP exam happened in May, as much as I love history, I'm like, I want to do something different. I think of this quote from Innovator's Mindset and George Kouros about how so many projects don't challenge kids enough. And so I want to do something completely different. So I just kind of dove in. January, I committed to doing this. I wasn't going to do it till May, so I had a couple months to plan. But, I just kind of got some ideas in place from what I could pull from the internet, Twitter, a couple books, and just went in. And it was a little messy, but I was committed to doing this. And the relationships I gained with kids from this and some of the potentials that I think were unlocked, I'll trade for not, we'll never trade for those again. So what really is Genius Hour? Well, the idea here is a movement that allows students to explore their own passions and encourages as much creativity as possible. It provides students a choice in what they're learning during a set time. Now, this is going to be in school most of the time. Deadlines are optional, and there's a lot of conversation around that. But you look down at the bottom here, the truthers kind of say there's no constraint on topic, anything the kids want, no due date, a little scary, right? And any kind of product to show the learning. I didn't follow all those rules, but that's kind of what the truthers say. I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to jump over. Let's see if it works with audio from John Spencer about what Genius Hour is.
Genius Hour begins with a simple premise. Give your students 20%
Give me an emoji if it's working
of
on. I'm going to pop
to
over.
learn what they want. They choose the content while also mastering the skills and hitting the academic
Smiley means
standards.
yes, maybe.
With Genius Hour, students own the entire journey. They choose the topics based upon their own geeky interests. It doesn't have to be a traditionally academic area. They might like fashion or food or sports or Legos or Minecraft or deep sea creatures. Students ask the questions and engage in their own research to find the answers. Along the way, they design their own plan of instruction. They decide on the resources and activities, and each student sets goals and engages in self-assessment. They work at their own pace and set their own deadlines. Students decide on the grouping. Some work alone, others work in pairs or in small groups. In the end, students figure out what they will make and how they will share it with the world. A word of caution, it's not a total free-for-all. The best Genius Hour projects have systems and structures that empower students to reach their full potential. Even so, there will be mistakes, and you'll have to experiment. But in the end, students are empowered to be self-directed learners, engaging in creativity and critical thinking. In other words, they own the learning.
So I'm going to go on faith that works. Let's see, is it working? Yeah. All right, good. So, John Spencer does it beautifully. A lot of his work is in this area with AJ Giuliani, and Power and Launch both connect to this idea. And you can see there's a lot there that he kind of unpacks. So we kind of go another level, like where did this come from? There's some different stories out there. My favorite's the Google one. I'm kind of a Google guy, but some people say 3M invented the idea. But basically, 20% of an employee's time was going to be for them to choose what they wanted to learn, or what they wanted to work on. And for Google, most of the employees are put on teams, but this one day of the week, they're allowed to work on something outside their team that benefits the company. And what they found is, not only did they uncover, some of these people during their 20% time uncover some new ideas. I think some parts of Gmail were invented during these times. Not only so it benefited the company in that part, but the other 80% we're much more productive. So think about that. So, we don't want to give up that time, but maybe you can make the other 80% more valuable and maybe skim off some things that you're spending too much time on when you're marrying this up to your curriculum. Just something to put out there. And really why it works, I think, comes great from Daniel Pink and Drive, when he talks about what really motivates people, what motivates workers specifically from his research and his sharing of learning, is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I'm sure this book is known to many of you out there. Here's another clip of him talking about why people want autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And really, those three things are truly embedded in the Genius Hour project.
Part of it is like, if you're a manager, it's so interesting. We tend to have this in business, this notion, especially managers, that people, if they're left alone, they're basically lumps, and they would never do anything. So you've got to have that stick waiting for them, or you've got to have that carrot out in front of them. That's how people are. They're inert lumps. Now, what's curious is that no manager ever believes this about him or herself. Okay, they only believe it about other people. But if you say, well, maybe people are kind of like me. Maybe they actually want to do something that matters. Maybe they want to do good work. Then if you say, well, maybe I should get out of their way a little bit more, and the science shows that. Maybe I should recognize that making progress is really important in job satisfaction. So what I can do as a manager is help people make that progress, or recognize that progress when it's made. And maybe, I think most important for a manager is, maybe I can explain what we're doing and infuse it with some sense of purpose. If people are working their butts off, as many people are right now in this economy.
So I think he hits on it well, and it really drives down to the heart of who we all are. And how much of school is not that, I think, is huge and important to think about. So Genius Hour has multiple names. Here's just a list of some that have been out there. So it's got PBL is part of this. I mean, it's all kind of in that branch. And there's so many different ways to name this. And you may have heard it from some other way, passion projects, or some other person doing it, but it's really what it boils down to. So we're going to open up to a question, and then I'm going to flip over to the chat. What are some obstacles you see in implementing Genius Hour? Some of you maybe have done Genius Hour. Some of you have maybe seen about it, heard about it. What do you see as some possible problems? I'm going to jump over to the chat. I'm sure, Rosie, you might have to, maybe Neff can jump in and help you, Rosie, about that. Determining what is good enough investigation-wise. Meaning, like, the kids, I think, is what you're asking. Are they going further? That's part of this process I think we'll look at. But the other part is they have to kind of own it. Kids' choice could go, what way, and whether you're open to it. Yeah, 45 minutes. I mean, that's what I worked on, Amanda. I'll talk about my story. We're 48-minute periods. So you're talking about one period of the week. I'm assuming you see them 5 times a week. The rubric part, Ed, that's a good point. How do we break them away from that? I have some ideas. I think we're going to get into that a little bit. Intervention time. Yeah, Ruth, that's a great point. There is some initial guidance, and to me, each kid might need a little bit more, a little bit less, right? And there's a lot of checking in. There's a lot of conversations to help maybe navigate those the best way. Every 3 days, 45 minutes, man. That's interesting. We'll have to brainstorm some ideas for that. Becky, it's another great question. Materials, okay. Hopefully, we're going to address that as well. The unmotivated, Brad, that is a big part of this, and there's some surprising things that might happen when you're doing this. So I hope we can address that as well. All right, so yeah, so you're hitting on the big things. No one brought up parents, which I'm going to talk about, or administrators. Maybe you had the most amazing parents and administrators that are going to just, whatever you want, Mr. or Mrs. Teacher, you're the best, and we're going to follow everything you do. So maybe you have that. Yeah, writing every single day, Emily, I hear you. So we can do that, though. Maybe we can boil this in, right, and talk about that. I love it. So these are all common questions that I think a lot of people have. So, just some things and ideas, some research from other articles. When your parents, administrators ask what you're doing, I just tweeted about this earlier. Back to school night's coming up, and you're like, hey, we're doing this Genius Hour. We're going to spend one day of the week not doing math, English, social studies. Could be intimidating. I was lucky to have a lot of supportive people in my building, but it's inquiry, it's research. I mean, like, how important is research? Wherever we fall in this fake news idea, it's a real thing. What's going on social media wise and such. So how much of that is becoming more and more of a life skill, being able to find information and dig through all of the information that's there so the kids can bring it all to them, but can they navigate successfully on what is good and what is not good information? So I think that falls into this category. I mean, you know, we use technology all the time to research, right? I research how to fix my dryer, and I'm terrible at handyman type stuff. So, you know, being able to navigate that and find a way to connect with something out there. Someone else out there is doing something that we have a passion for, our students have a passion for, and this project can really incorporate all of our skills. AJ Giuliani wrote a blog post I linked there. I think he's morphed it a little bit, but how Genius Hour can connect with 28 Common Core standards. The bottom line is this can connect to your subject matter, in my belief, and no matter what it is, it can connect. We can, and then the beauty of this is maybe you have to mold it a little bit to make it fit into what you want to do or your subject matter. I worked with somebody that teaches science, and they just said that the subject matter had to be science, so they kind of put a little bit of a cap on it. Maybe not a truther, but that's okay. They let the kids have choice in this pursuit. So I think you can find a way to connect a skill and or your content matter that way. The time thing, or you know, fitting my content, I kind of just talked about that, I guess. But again, how important inquiry and authentic research are. You know, some of our most successful countries in the world are using, are capitalizing or emphasizing these skills. You know, and in that last part, it's no longer just academic; it's a life skill to be a researcher. And how they can navigate that comes out of this. And then the time thing. So I'm going to kind of push back in this sense. You heard me talk about the 80% time being more productive when 20% time is in place. You know, this research has been around for a long time. The forgetting curve. You know, how much of the information are kids forgetting about? And, you know, the stuff you teach them, are they remembering the best 50% or some stuff you maybe don't need? And it also challenged this forgetting curve. If they are learning by doing and failing and reassessing and moving forward, and when they're digging into the learning of something they are passionate about, I would beg to differ that this curve begins to move quite much in the right direction, right? So, you know, I think sometimes we put too much content into our kids, and this forgetting curve tells us it's almost a waste of time. But how much more effective will it be if they are practicing and digging into this work, right? So that would be kind of my answer to time. I know time's always gonna be a factor, but let's look at the positive in the can instead of the can't part. And then the unmotivated, Brad talked about it. I'm sure some of you thought about it. You know, I love this story because we think, oh, kids are gonna love this. It's something they get to pick to do. They're just gonna run with it. And many of you have already said, a lot of kids wanna be told what to do. And so you read this little segment. This is not from my work. This is from Joy Kerr's work. And just kind of highlighting the kids like, I've done nothing. I've just messed around. This is not a good project. I don't have any goals because there's nothing I want to do. Like, you might have that kid. And what Joy Kerr did with people like AJ Giuliani and a few others a couple years ago was they created this prompt. I'm going to click over here. You know, I don't know what to do yet for Genius Hour, right? So they have all these ideas, from getting them to rethink through questions and hobbies. And, you know, I love this. What do you really hate? What upsets you besides Genius Hour? You know, maybe you have them. I'm going to scroll down fast here. This is linked and you get a copy, right? Create your own March Madness of likes and dislikes. Maybe you have them film and be the documentarian of everyone else's Genius Hour. Maybe they make a commercial for your Genius Hour. So there are other ways, but it's all about you have jumped in, you've committed. Now keep nudging them along the path and keep trying to find a way to connect and let them really know that there's no exit of this. It would be the best way to do it. I'm not saying it's easy. It's about your culture in your room. But this is a great document when you have those kids stuck. I'm going to share a lot more resources later. So what does Genius Hour look like in my classroom? I'm going to jump over any questions coming through. Let's see. Still no luck. Oh, no. I hope it gets figured out, Rosie. Any other questions off the top of your head while we're sitting there taking a break? No? All right, I'm going to jump back over. Again, if you have a question, we'll wrap up at the end, definitely. So what did my Genius Hour look like? I pulled from these resources. How did it come together in my class? You're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly here. So my outline was not a truther to some extent. I gave kids complete freedom of choice. We had about a month of every Friday to work on this, so I was kind of limited in my timeline, although we ended up adding a few more days because it was after the AP exam, like I was talking about. They could either improve their own skills or teach others about their expertise. I had one kid that was passionate about breeding small cichlids, little fish. So he wanted to make a website showing how to take care of fish. Some got better, like a couple kids wanted to learn how to play guitar, learn to play the keyboard. And it's really cool because they're like, Mr. Craig, I've never had time to do this before. And this project gave me time. I actually had time. These are some high achieving kids. I had time in my schedule to do some of the things I really want to do. So it's such a cool moment. Or they can make something to benefit others. So that was kind of the guideline of what they were going to look for. Again, one class period a week. You know, Emily, you brought up about writing. This could where writing could be more part of it. I had them post a vlog. Great way to use Screencastify, right? Great way. Of what they did every day. I think that was a big successful part of my project. This could be writing every day if you want to. And then their end product did have to be a website. So some of them did actually make some handheld items, or they built something, but they had to all make a website documenting their learning. They put their vlogs in there so we could see along the way and just kind of be this one-stop shop with all their stuff. Because I wanted them to have some practice with Google Sites. We hadn't done a lot with that. So it's kind of a hidden skill within there. And that was my parameters. So how did I get started? Well, most people say you got to motivate kids. So I turned to Kane's Arcade. I wish I could play the whole thing for you right now. I don't want to cry, and we don't have, I don't want to put 10 minutes into it. But if you have not seen Kane's Arcade and how amazing that little boy is, you need to watch that at some point. But it was all about motivating, showing kids doing great things, getting kids excited. So there's so many videos out there. There's so many things you can look at, but sparking their interest is what almost everyone agrees is a way to get kids moving. And then from there, that same day, I had this like brainstorm sheet, which again is linked towards the end of my presentation. You know, just start naming 10 things you've ever wanted to do physically, things you ever want to do mentally or see, ways to help community. So you just kind of have them just list things and just brainstorm and get as much out as possible within a certain amount of time. That was kind of the end of one day. Then we came back the next day and we looked back at what we had, and we really started to narrow down the focus on what they wanted to do. We even had some kids do some preliminary research. Is this something I can pursue? Is it something I can achieve? Or is this kind of a dead end? And this gave me some time to work with some kids one-on-one and sit down and you know, they all kind of, it was an informal process, but you know, by the end of the day, they really were supposed to narrow down what they wanted, because I didn't want to avoid a late topic change because the work would have been kind of insurmountable. So they kind of really had to find something that day that they were going to follow or answer some kind of question. And again, these documents can all be found from other websites, and I've linked them at the end of the presentation. And then once they had this part over, the next step then was to begin the work. And so they started doing the research. You know, some of them had to make decisions. Do I have a plan to work in the classroom, or do I need to like build something outside the classroom, and then what my plan will be for in the classroom, right? So I had a girl that I'll talk about later that built a beehive with her dad. Well, she couldn't bring all those materials into my social studies classroom. So the building went on at home, and then in class, she designed her website, did more research, did that kind of work, you know, where other kids did most of their work in the classroom. So it's really about the kids planning, how am I going to achieve this? How can I accomplish this? And then the biggest thing I always had them do was a standing prompt using Flipgrid. Great way to use Screencastify though, right? What did you research today? Where did it take you? What did you learn? But the biggest things with the last two is what struggles and setbacks that you have. I had one kid that wanted to recreate Woodstock. And we already saw that the big time people can't do that. It was canceled this summer, right? So how can you do it locally? And my favorite moment was he calls a local venue, like an outdoor venue, and asked, you know, about renting it. And they talk about the cost and like how much it costs you have to pay for their security. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous, Mr. Craig. I'm like, this is called event planning. This is what happens. And so his learning in that moment was so important. He was kind of bummed, but like he grasps kind of what it takes and how amazing the original Woodstock was to be pulled off, but what it takes to kind of put something together. So that there's all kinds of learning even in his failure. And the biggest thing I want him to do is say, what are you going to do next time? Because we've all been in projects where you give them this time and you look over and student A is just sitting there daydreaming and they're like, oh, I'm looking for what to do. I'm trying to make a decision. I'm not sure. We had this documentation now. And so if I saw a kid not really working, I was right over with, hey, let's watch this video together. You told me you're going to do this right now. What's happening? So that was great. And a lot of kids told me they love that planning piece. I'm going to play a quick little video though of one of the vlogs from two of my girls who talked about the work they did on a day they weren't in class. which to me is pretty cool. They were still working even though they both weren't in class, and they got creative on how to make their vlog by using some cell phones and FaceTime.
So today, though I was not in class, I researched teen psychology and which ways studying would be the most effective for different kinds of people, and especially in our scenario, which would be how to push out the most amount of information about studying as possible.
You got a little battery there, Lex. Today I also was not in class, but I started to work on the layout of.
So they both weren't in class, but they wanted to capitalize on their project in their Genius Hour time. They were going to make a homework help website for students. So just this is what they were doing every time, and I could go back and do it on my own time, because during that class time while they're working, I'm walking around the room, I'm scheduling meetings with kids, I'm checking on the work, building relationships, learning more about them, and just hearing about these passions. It was such a great moment. And this is kind of what they turned in all the time. And then they make the websites, and there's just some screenshots here of some of their websites. I wish I could share them all out, but because of the domain issues with Google Sites, it's not easy to do. And all these kids have now graduated. So, you know, they're off doing their thing. So it's from learning to play the keyboard to learning about the brain. There's the young man with the cichlids. This girl's story about going back to dance camp, which, you know, she was bullied and she left dancing. And, you know, she talks about how Genius Hour got her to go back to it and found her passion again. She went back and was tutoring little girls in dance. And you know, was so happy this project brought her back to her passion that she had left because she had been bullied. And then my story that you know, my favorite story here is this young lady, Madison, who, you know, designed a beehive with her dad because she read about the honeybee crisis. This is actually her photo she took. Amazing stuff, right, on her website. You can kind of read this as I'm talking, but the levels of Genius Hour here that had an impact. So she does this work. Her dad worked with her, and he was a construction foreman. He brought all these materials from his job site that were scraps and leftovers for them to build. The biggest thing, he tells me, it was a bonding moment with his daughter. That's the most they bonded in years over this project. So they had that going on. Then this young lady comes back to me in her senior year saying, Mr. Craig, can you get my website unlocked? Because of that work in Genius Hour, I want to pursue zoology or some kind of animal sciences at the college level. This is what I want to major in now. And she was not on that path until this point. Getting a little choked up, but and that's where she is right now. She's in college right now, pursuing zoo science. I forget, zoo sciences, animal sciences. I'm sorry if I don't know the exact major term or which area she's in, but that's what she's in. She used her website from Genius Hour to help get into the program as part of her application process. Just all the amazing things. Now, this is one amazing story out of some good stories and some not so good stories, but this wouldn't have happened in an AP US history class. This would not have happened for this young lady if we didn't open the door for her in my classroom. So that is kind of where I was with the project. And then, you know, kind of what was the impact. So this next slide, I have a bunch of quotes from kids. I constantly was sending Google Forms out, getting their feedback. So I wanted to know, is it something I should pursue further? Did they like it? These are actual quotes. And then the young lady who did the dance camp, here's her. She sent me a little video talking about her time with Genius Hour. And I think she sums it up well.
When I first started Genius Hour project, I was like, how in the world am I going to do this? I had no idea what I want to do. It's definitely one of those things where you just think about so much. Like, I know I've never thought more about a project, but then as soon as I got my idea and I started going, I was on a roll. Like, I definitely could see myself, and I fell more in love with my passions. I found more out about myself. I found it's something that I definitely could see myself doing in my life. I highly recommend the Genius Hour project. I really like it. It's very engaging, and it's very helpful to when you want to start thinking about your future goals. It's it can be challenging, but I think in the end it's very worth it.
Best part, right? It's challenging. She actually came and told me. I couldn't get her to video it again, but she's like, are we doing Genius Hour today? I'm like, no, not today. And she's like, I want to. She's like, it's the most work I've done, but I've loved every minute. Like, that's what we want, right? That's what we do all this work for. And it might only happen with one kid, but it's one kid in a different world than they were before, right? I can't say enough about what this did for me with kids and for the kids that I worked with, and you know, and how we changed what we did. Now, all the mistakes that I made, and what I would do differently if I went back in the classroom right now, is I would change it to 20% time, because the Genius Hour, some people say, is only getting better at something. So let's call it 20% time. It's 1 day a week for you to do what you want to do. I would spend a lot more time up front and spend more time in the project overall. So there's a lot more wondering and inquiry, a lot of more inspiring. Some kids were lost. I mean, I had one girl that wanted me to pick her project for her. Pick her project, anything she wants to do, it's your passion. No, you pick for me. She'd never been challenged like that. She'd never been asked to be creative like that. So I'd love to spend more time helping her find her way. I should have, and I highly recommend a 90-second pitch or elevator speech, they might call it. Let them talk to the class about what they're planning on doing, so it helps them kind of really narrow their choice down. And then be more open to the product choice. Doesn't have to be a website, but I think the big key is this idea of global audience. That was my big thing with the website, is that you're making this not just for me to grade, because I didn't even grade it, by the way. I just graded the vlogs and were you on time. But this is a product that everyone's going to look at. We're going to share for your folks. So that's who you're doing this for. That's where you should strive to be complete and all those other pieces. It's not just about you and me. It's about the bigger picture. So I think that were all parts of my success, things I would change, and how it went for me. So I'm going to jump to the chat. If you have any questions at this point, I'm going to kind of share some resources and ideas moving forward. But I'm going to miss a lot of questions and so forth. Let me go back. Let's see. 1st and 5th on Flipgrid. Yeah, Flipgrid's a great idea. It's a great way to collect videos. Screencastify might be a good idea. I don't know. I'm sure Neff can help you with that. Let's see. Journaling. One big essay. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing big essays, it's going to be something more that you have to kind of blend in, but maybe they can combine them. They can work on editing, possibly. Yeah, so Holly, it was 1 day a week. It wasn't really a unit. It was every Friday. They actually had 2 projects at the same time. One was for it was history based, and then 1 day of the week was Genius Hour. I'm sure you can guess what they wanted to do more of the 2 projects. And somebody already answered that. All right. Any experience? So no, Holly. And I think that's where I'd love to push more to do it. I didn't have any in that class. I think those are the populations of students that we need to look to do this more with, because they're the ones jaded about school. They're the ones maybe don't see the benefit of school. And I know that there's all the things we could talk about and the skills for those folks, but I really would use that project as a way to ignite passion in school and what school can be and what learning is. And I really think we could pivot some kids' views on life and especially about school by things like this. Yeah, I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be language tasks. It could be, again, the video thing. We're getting rid of that literacy issue and helping them find their way, because they're going to go in life too. They have to research. They have to have inquiry. They have to find passion. So I think that ignite could happen when shown what school can be, and having that teacher that's asking instead of us saying, here's we're going to do this and this and this and this. What do you want to learn about? Right? How powerful is that question? What do you want to learn about? Right? So I'm going to turn back to the presentation to kind of wrap up what I have here. And then if there's more questions, we can go through it. Hope everyone's doing well, hanging with me. I appreciate all the time tonight. So you're ready, right? Now you're ready to jump in. What can you start with? You can use my steps, good and bad. I looked at some things. We use a program called PLN, Penn Literacy Network, which is all literacy based. Obviously, a lot of our teachers in my school have gone through it. A lot of teachers and schools throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey have used this program. And they talk about an iSearch paper and project. And really, these are the steps of iSearch. And if you look through those, make the connection, important to you, connect to prior knowledge. The idea was, how do we transform research papers? Really, that's what Genius Hour to me is. We've transformed what research is about. Let them have choice. Let them have a voice in what they want. Enhance student agency. And it really it's the same basic steps. Another book that I use, if you're in middle school to elementary school, I would look at this Genius Hour Guidebook if you want some more ideas and examples. It's, because the idea that this is a little more secondary based, not elementary based, is pretty inherent. I think there's ways to do with elementary. You start with a class, a whole class project maybe, or have them in groups. Maybe do a group project together and kind of have them work to pick something they want to solve. It's great. I have an idea later about how you can make it about benefiting society. But this book here was something I use as a little bit of a jumping off point. And again, there's the steps that Denise and Gallup lay out in this about how to get there: inspire, brainstorm, find your question. Most times invested in the launching, the researching, how are they going to make it visible, the project, the website, whatever you want to choose with them. And then, I didn't really do step 6 that well of the self-assessment, doing a lot more self-assessment and giving feedback, and, letting them turn this in and do it over multiple times, I think is a key piece that would really expand the learning. And that John Dewey quote just sums it up. And then one more book you could look at, and there's more. They keep growing. There's so many resources, a lot of free ones too on the internet. But if you like books like me, maybe you want something. What Andy McNair has here is the 6 Ps. Again, those are the steps. Very similar. I think I just saw on Twitter literally today that she has a new book. There's a new book coming out. Kind of a ready-to-use resources of the same model, so you can check that out. I think all the books I put Amazon links into just in case you want the shortcut. So maybe you're thinking about younger kids, middle school kids. How do we get them, think about empathy, how can we kind of bring this together with something that they could do as a group? I say look no further than these SDGs. I'm sure you've maybe seen these before. But basically, the UN came out and say these are 17 goals they have by 2030 that they want to basically solve or end in the world, end poverty, end hunger. And when you go to these sites, there's so many resources, information. The Teach SDGs is written for students even more so, especially middle to younger, to be able to understand some of these concepts. But you're doing real world research, real world problem solving. They want people to submit ideas. They want people on board. If anything, it helps spread awareness of these things that, why don't we have clean water everywhere, right? So maybe you have the students explore, maybe they pick one of these 17 to focus on. AJ Giuliani did a great blog post a year or so ago about have the students make a PSA. I mean, how quickly could you turn that around? Research a goal, tell us what's going on, make a PSA to get awareness about your goal. I mean, that could be a great stepping stone into Genius Hour, and how it could expand into a pamphlet you had, back to school nights coming up. I mean, I'm sure this is too short of a window, but, maybe they can make pamphlets to hand out to parents about that. So I think this could be a great trigger, and you're doing amazing work that's relevant to what kids are seeing. And who knows what the next step could be. And then maybe you can look more locally. We had our middle school, Jenna Missinelli, probably not here, but she did an awesome project at a local middle school. They were out at a fire drill, and they noticed that people tend to cut through their parking lot to get from one major road to another. And it was like some of the kids just pointed out, this is crazy. So their teacher, Jenna, was like, what are we going to do about it? And they came across an idea of they found they talked to the police, they talked to local politicians, and they were able to get a contractor to come in and do the work and put a gate up that could be closed during school time so people wouldn't cut through when kids are outside, So any of that stuff falls into what this could be, and those inspirations are out there and those sparks are out there. The last couple things I have here, I used this presentation this summer, and we kind of focused on all these different blog resources. You could look at our Padlet of what people summarize based on these 10 if you want the quick, short version. But they cover kind of all the different bases of motivation, things to do, and so forth. And then the ultimate slide. If this is the thing that you're here for, this is the one, right? Is all these amazing ideas on how to do Genius Hour. The number one, bar none, is Joy Kerr's Live Binder. I'm going to open that up. And she just collected and collected. She's really a big advocate of this. All these ideas to get kids started. And when you scroll down on the left here, you can see just loads and loads of stuff. But then you have some of the questions you guys are asking me, how do we talk to parents and administrators? There's a ton of ideas there, right? Struggling teachers, struggling students, how do they find passion? There's just a wealth of information that's constantly being updated and added on here. So you could basically go find the answer to the question you have as you come across this, because you're going to have them, they're going to pop up. So I would bookmark this site if you haven't seen it already. Of all the ones on there, this is the ultimate one that helped me. All these books here are linked. They all feature or talk about Genius Hour in some way or another. This is a terrible scanning from the middle school book about Genius Hour in the primary class. Sorry about the quality of that, but basically it's the idea of start big, start with a class, at the elementary level, and then working the groups from there possibly would be a way to go. And then, one more little plug here. Someone I worked with this summer that sat in my session, Danielle, is a teacher in PA. She is now she finally got the nudge. She heard about Genius Hour. She thought about it. She came. I helped her take the first step, and she's already starting amazing work. She just introduced it to her kids. The blog post this is linked to, Fanning the Flame, and she's going to blog about her journey. The day she introduces the kids, go read about the kids' reactions. It will let us spark. I guarantee it, and give you some goosebumps probably, because she, this one girl's like, oh, I really get to do this. This is real, and that the face I can imagine on this young woman's face, the look in her face had to be remarkable. Like, oh my gosh, this is what school could be, right? It's powerful. So, I hope you dig into this stuff. Again, most of these ideas are not mine. This is just me connecting you with that. Hopefully giving you a nudge. Hopefully answering some concerns and questions you might have. You're probably here because you've thought about this, and you're just looking for a way to get started. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Put your ideas together and take the step. I can almost guarantee you will connect with kids in a different way, and your kids will find some love in here. So last call for questions. Will the presentation be available to watch later? Yes, I think Neff told me they're going to. This is being recorded, and you can access it to their Twitter account. I think you're going to tweet it out. Holly's talking to Becky about Screencastify. Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's one of the best things going out there. Part of my journey, just a quick plug, because they gave me this forum, was going from a traditional classroom to a flipped classroom. And I couldn't have done without Screencastify. And once I wanted to innovate, it rolled, and Genius Hour was the next kind of ideation out of that. So I can't talk about this product enough, and they don't even want me here to do that, but I can't talk about this product enough, and how much it can do to change you in the classroom, on how many ideas are out there. I hope you're looking at those master courses and genius courses they're offering about other ways to use Screencastify. But are there any more questions? Was this her wonder project? Not sure you're talking about, Emily. Susie, thank you. Oh, Holly, stop. Ed uses Screencastify. It's a great tool for this project and for others. But is there anything else about Genius Hour? I'm not that good, but I did talk for a long time.
All right. Thank you so much, Jon, and thank you for answering questions. Just a quick plug, as I said at the beginning, this is the first of 4 webinars that we'll be hosting throughout September, which will be about student empowerment. So if you would like to join us, I just dropped that link over. Please click. There are 4 different webinars. Holly Clark will be joining us, Lisa Highfield, Stella Pollard, tons of amazing educators who will be joining the Screencastify squad. Also, please make sure that you follow us on Twitter if you don't already. We got a few tidbits, but I might be a bit biased. But we definitely will post the link for here. So please feel free to share that with friends, colleagues, to let folks know about all the amazing things that you learned today. But yeah, definitely follow everybody. Thank you so much for taking some time out. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks so much. See you, everybody. Bye.